The conquering of Abyssinia between 1529 and 1543 is one of the most important historical events to ever happen in the Horn of Africa. Now, this conquering of Abyssinia was, of course, carried out by Ahmed Gurey, or Ahmed Gran, as the Ethiopians came to call him. And his full name, of course, is Ahmed bin Ibrahim Al Ghazi. Now, Ahmed Gurey had a huge army, and a significant section of this army, we could say the majority of this army, was Somali. And this event is, of course, documented by one Arafaki in Futuh Al Habasha. And in that book, he gives us a lot of details about that event, including giving us the exact numbers of the different Somali clans, or the army, or the soldiers who came from the specific different clans to be part of the army of Ahmed Gurey. And we are going to read that part where he tells us about those exact numbers of the Somali soldiers who became part of the army of Ahmed Gurey. But before that, he also tells us the troubles that Ahmed Gurey did have with the Somali. Of course, we assume that the Somalis were with him from the word go. There were those who were actually with him, who were his followers from day one when he differed with Abu Bakr the Sultan. There were those who were his followers. But the majority, the bigger section of the Somali society was not with him. And it took a while for many Somalis to actually join his army. And Arafaki writes about those troubles. Ahmed Gurey at some point had to punish some of them, some of the clans, and in the end they made peace with him and they became his followers. Now let's read about those before we go reading the part where he tells us about the exact numbers of the Somali soldiers who were part of Ahmed Gurey, and he tells us about the numbers and also the leaders of the different clans. For example, he writes about this clan. He says, among the Somali tribes there was one called Haber Magadi, from whom the Imam had demanded the tax. They had refused it, cut the roads, and devastated the country. Ahmed advanced to a place called Rabaud, between the country of the Muslims and that of the infidels, as if he wanted to march against Abyssinia. Then he turned around towards the country of the predatory Somalis. They took flight. He pursued them to a day's distance from the sea, pillaged their territory extensively, ravaged it, and returned. The Somalis who had entered the service of Ahmed and the former Sultan Kural Abun were with the Imam, as we have mentioned previously. So he has this army of Somalis who we could say he had inherited from Abun. Abun was his leader, we could say, and he's the person who took him up and made him a horseman, and he served him for a very long time. And then when Abun was overthrown, Ahmed Gurey was not happy with Abu Bakr the Sultan, and he ran away with a group of soldiers, of course, including significant number of Somalis. Now, with those Somalis, they go punish these other Somalis who were not willing to work with him. But despite doing that, the Somali seems to have respected him a lot, because sometimes the Somalis amongst the different clans will fight, and he will demand that there should be peace, and actually they will listen to him. Now, during the first, because there was an initial campaign that he performed against Abyssinia, and then there was the full campaign that followed later on, and Arafaki gives us the numbers from these two. Now, the very initial one, this is what Arafaki writes about the number of the Somalis who joined Ahmed Gurey. And he writes, two messengers returned to announce to the Imam the arrival of the Somali tribes and said to him, no one has had your letter read without obeying God the Most High with haste. Your call has been answered. Numerous preparations of equipment and coats of mail of several rows have been made. The tribes follow one another. Troops succeed troops. People succeeds people. Then he continues now to tell us about the numbers. He says, the first tribe to arrive was of the Abri Magadi with their leader Ahmed Gurey bin Hussein al-Somali, with 50 horsemen and 500 foot soldiers. They camped in a place called Kacha in the upper part of the valley of Harar. They showed their weapons and equipment, mounted their horses. There were their horsemen, and what horsemen, foot soldiers, and what foot soldiers. Their arrival caused extreme joy to the Imam. They marched with him. He welcomed them, gave them clothes and food, showed them consideration, and dressed their chief Ahmed Gurey in magnificent garment. After them came the tribe of the Giri, who had their head Matar bin Othman B. Khalid, a Somali, with 80 horsemen and 1,000 foot soldiers. They showed their weapons and equipment, mounted their horses, carrying their bows in bandoliers, and presented themselves to Ahmed. He sent them ahead to a place called Sim. So these are is giving them in that order. Like the first one to come was Habar Magadi. He tells us about the numbers. He tells us about their leader. Then come the Giri, which Gare I think today that's how it is written. They also come with their leader. Their chief, now the chief of the Gari, their chief had brought his wife Fardausa, sister of the Imam. Now, the chief of Gari had married the sister to Imam Gurey, and he came with the wife or the sister of Imam Gurey. Then came the tribe of Serba. I don't know who the Serba are. Its chief was Sultan Muhammad, son of a paternal aunt of the Imam. He had with him 1,060 valiant foot soldiers and 40 horsemen. Ahmed received them with great honors. He resided in Harar. He felt joy, thanked God the Most High. The army camped around the city. Each tribe was separated from the other. Now, then comes the other. The tribe of Marehan remained inactive. Its chief, Hirabau, who loved discord and quarrels, he was very cunning, perfidious, and extremely treacherous. The Imam took men from his army and went to the Marehan. He met Haribau and his tribe and said to him, "Why are you late in coming to the holy war?" The chief complained of his distress and excused himself by alleging his poverty. Ahmed accepted his excuse and said, "You have nothing to hope for by dragging things out." Then Harib put his nephew at the head of the Marehan and joined them to the Imam's force. They numbered 90 horsemen and more than 700 foot soldiers. Haribau remained behind, and Ahmed left with the Marehan tribe for his city of Harar. So the Marehan chief seems like was not interested in joining the war. But then the Imam went to see him, and seems like he did not. He gave excuses, of course, and the Imam seems like decided he was not going to pursue that matter that much. He decided maybe that's not important at this point, and the chief accepted to have somebody else be in charge of the Marehan soldiers, and they left with the Imam. Now that's the initial expedition that started. After that initial one, there was sort of a small break. Now there was the main one. Now the last time that Ahmed Gurey decides to cross over to Abyssinia for good, and he never comes back. Now with this one, Arafaki also gives us some details about the composition of the army. He says the peoples of Mahara came with Sharif Mohammed to Ahmed, who honored them because of the holy war. Now, I don't know the Mahara, who are the Mahara people. He sent out on all sides of the Somalis and the tribes of the Harla. All rose, and first of all, the Abramagad with their chief Garad Daud, numbering 50 horsemen and 500 foot soldiers. Then came the Marehan, commanded by Ahmed ben Herabau, comprising 80 horsemen and 700 foot soldiers. The Gorgora, who had a chief Garad Abd. The Giris, led by Matan, they were 80 horsemen and 1,000 foot soldiers. The tribes of Zerba, forming part of the Harla, with their chief Sultan Muhammad, followed by 20 horsemen and 300 foot soldiers. All the allied and submissive tribes gathered. The number of horses was over 500, that of foot soldiers 12,000, not counting those who had carried provisions. So that was the composition of the army that then accompanied Ahmed Gurey to Abyssinia. It seems to have composed mostly of the Somalis, but there were others like the Harla and others who also joined, and they also played a major role in that army. I know I made a video that was a little bit controversial about the ethnicity of Ahmed Gurey. This Arab Faki does not come out right to tell us he was a Somali. He does not do that, or he was of any other ethnicity. But he mentions his relatives. For example, he mentions the sister. He mentions we could say nephew, and these are Somalis. So maybe we can gather from that Ahmed Gurey was a Somali. And yeah, I think that rests there. He does not come out to say he was a Somali, but by mentioning his relatives who are Somalis, he basically kind of like leaves us and thinking he's a Somali. And also because he tells us his very initial early followers were basically Somalis, to a large extent at least. This book, of course, you can find a copy on Amazon. I did create a version that you can read. It has the English translation and also has images of the Arabic text that was written, handwritten in the back of the book. So if you know how to read Arabic and you will prefer reading something that is closer to the original text, you can go back to the book and just read the Arabic version. If you can't read Arabic like I can't myself, then you can just read the English translation, which is also good actually. Yeah, so you can buy the book on Amazon. Check the description box, check the pinned comment for a link where you can get the book. And if you are watching on TikTok, check the bio. Of course, you can get a link there. Those are my random thoughts.